Hey guys, thanks for joining me for today's review. This is the BROWEY C600 portable power station. It's a rugged, kind of a mid-range capacity briefcase style, as you can see. And it's got a 600 watt continuous AC inverter and a 614 watt hour lithium iron phosphate battery. And it's got a pretty cool trick up its sleeve. But before we get into all of that and the performance testing, let's jump back in time a few weeks and take a look at what it comes with when you get it out of the box. All right, we've got one cable pouch. Let's find out what's in there. All right, so a 12 volt adapter to a DC 5521 connector. This is looks like the AC adapter power cord. And there's the AC adapter. Yeah, so yeah, the AC adapter does not feel cheap. It feels pretty well made, pretty dense. Some of these can feel pretty cheap, and for the last couple of ones that I have reviewed, have been doing pretty well. When they do have AC adapters, at least they are made pretty well. So again, DC 5521 connector, not surprising. And it looks like they give you a spare DC 5521 connector for a solar panel, I presume. So 10 different adapters here, in addition to the cable that they give you. All right, so we've got a little warranty card, it looks like, and then we've got a pretty decent user manual here that's actually full color. Interesting. So we'll see how good a manual that they have produced, but it looks pretty good so far. All right, we'll get into that. Let's take a look at the power station itself. All right, I gotta show you this thing. They have got this thing wrapped in here really well. So, yeah. Ugh.
2 hours later.
All right, there it is. This is a densely packed guy, I can tell you that right now. What does it look like on the front? So we got BROWEY, maybe it's BROWEY. All right, so this is the second briefcase style power station that I have reviewed, and this one is a little bit different than the other one. So this one is even more unique. Let's see, all the ports are actually on this side. Okay, so this would actually all make more sense if I stood it up this way, wouldn't it? Yeah, it would. Let's see if we can get the display to come on here. All right, well, pretty bare bones display. Just got a little state of charge indicator. That's basically what you get on the display. I'll give you a little close up there. Now, in terms of USB ports, it's got 2 USB-A's. Looks like one might be a quick charge and the other one is a standard, and then a USB-C. And it looks like that is output only. All right, so this thing looks very weatherproof. I think the more interesting main event here is right here. Very cool. This is a solar panel. All right, looks like there's a little oil or something on the panels here left over from manufacturing. So I'm going to clean that off and then take this out and run it through the paces, find out how it actually performs in real life. So that's going to take a few weeks. I'll report back in about 2 seconds. Okay, we are back to the present. So let's go over some of the important specs and then do some performance testing to see if it lives up to those specs. And let's get right to the pricing. So the C600 is currently listed on Amazon US for $5.99 and currently does have a $100 coupon that you can apply. You don't need any special codes or anything, you just check a box. And that should bring the price down to about $4.99, which I think is a pretty reasonable deal considering what you're getting. And per usual, I put an Amazon link directly to the C600 in the video description below for you if you wanted to go check that out. So the C600 does have a 4-year warranty, which is quite a bit better than the more common 2-year warranty in this product space. And yeah, there are a few brands that are now offering 5-year warranties, but those are kind of still in the minority, so I'd consider a 4-year warranty to still kind of be a standout feature. So this power station weighs in at about 23 pounds or about 10.5 kilograms for our friends on the metric system. So it's quite manageable as a portable power station. The lithium iron phosphate battery is rated to maintain about 80% of its original capacity after 3,500 full charge and discharge cycles, which effectively gives it a useful service life of about 10 years or more. The AC inverter, as I mentioned, is rated for 600 watts continuous and up to a 1,200 watt surge or peak. And as you can see, all the input and output ports are kind of covered with these little rubberized covers, which are just a little bit fiddly at times, I have to say. But when you get them seated properly, they do provide a good job of keeping debris and moisture out. So it does have an IPX3 weather resistance rating, so it can withstand a little splash here and there, but you wouldn't want to leave this thing out in a downpour. And you can charge this thing via the included AC adapter, which outputs 108 watts. And that allows you to charge the C600 from 0 to 100% in just about 6 hours. So you can also charge this on DC power via the included 12-volt car adapter or via solar at up to 100 watts. Now that's in addition to the built-in solar panel, but we'll see how all that works in a minute. So the solar input range is always important to know. It's 12 volts to 30 volts at about 4.5 amps. So most 18 volt 100 watt solar panels should work just fine with this unit. But as with anything, you want to kind of double check the manual on those solar panels to make sure that the ISC rating or the short circuit current rating doesn't significantly exceed that 4.5 amps. Anything up to about 6 amps should be completely fine, but anything much higher than that, and you could end up tripping the protection on the C600, in which case you'd get no solar output from that particular panel. So just be aware of that. As far as the ports on the output side, there are two DC 5525 ports, not 21 ports, and they output 12 volts at 10 amps max. There's two 18-watt USB-A ports and one PD 65-watt USB-C port. And then finally you have the standard 12-volt 10-amp car socket and then just one single AC outlet. Okay, let's see how this thing holds up to our performance testing. All right, let's do a DC discharge on this BROWEY C600. We're fully charged up here. Let's check back when it's done. All right, DC discharge is done. Let's see how we did. As you can see, we got 500 and almost 19 watt hours. So we'll call it 519 watt hours. All right, let's do a usable capacity discharge test on the AC inverter and find out how much power we can get out of the AC side. So I got my little watt meter here, and I've got a little space heater hooked up to it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. And we'll discharge at about 200 watts. And we'll come back and see when it's done how many actual watt hours we got. All right, AC discharge capacity test is done. Let's find out how we did. We got 544 watt hours out of the AC inverter. All right, we are going to load test this C600 from BROWEY. Now this, as you might guess from the part number, is a 600 watt continuous, 1200 watts surge AC inverter, and it does have just this single AC outlet. So if you need to plug in more than one thing, you're going to need either a dual head extension cord or a little outlet strip or something. But anyway, let's I've got it currently setting at 400 watts or thereabouts. So let me go ahead and bump this up to 600 watts, which it should be able to handle. And let's see what we get there. We see it climbing. Should get very close to 600 watts. And we should be able to let it run here for just a few minutes. So I'm going to just kind of let this run. I'm going to speed up the video so you don't have to wait. All right, definitely not having a problem at 600 or 590 as the case is. Let me try dialing it up just a little bit. All right, so we are 6 or 7% over the rated continuous output of 600, and it has not cut us off after a little over a minute. So I think we're in pretty good shape. All right, let's see if we can trip this thing. Shouldn't be too hard. Let me dial it up to 750. 740, and it finally tripped. So we got to 740 watts for maybe a second or two, and then it tripped. All right, so I think we've determined that the 1200 watt surge capability on this AC inverter is really measured in pretty much milliseconds or maybe a second, just maybe a hair more than that, but not much more than that. So you can't run in excess of 600 watts continuous for very long at all. But let's see if we turn the AC inverter on right now. I'm going to go ahead and ramp this up, and we'll see what we are charging at. All right, so you can see we are right at that 600 watt input continuous max on that. I want to see if I exceed this just a little bit instead of all the way up to surge. What happens if I exceed it just a little bit, to find out if there's any headroom in that 600 watts. So let me try that, and we'll see. We are at 644, so 633, so right around 40 watts, 42 watts, in excess of that 600 watt continuous. And I'm going to switch to a time lapse, and we're just going to let this run and see if it runs all the way down to empty at this maximum load, or if it does cut us off after some period of time. So let me switch over to time lapse and we'll see how we do. All right, as you can see, even though we exceeded the rated continuous output by about 40 watts, it ran all the way down to empty without tripping protection. So there is a little bit of headroom in that 600 watts continuous. But yeah, this thing definitely performs very well as compared to its rated spec, for sure. Okay, so usable capacity and inverter load testing performance is pretty solid on this unit. Oh, and before I forget to mention it, I did test to confirm that you can be charging the unit and running an AC load at the same time, so that definitely works. By the way, I also did want to confirm that this BROWEY C600 does pass the 24-hour refrigerator test, and that's basically where I fully stock a refrigerator, bring it up to target temperature in a cool environment like my basement here, where it's about 68 degrees ambient, and I make sure that the power station does not shut off for a full 24 hours, even with a very highly intermittent power draw from this refrigerator, since it's set to a fairly high temperature and the compressor doesn't kick on that often. So C600 does pass the refrigerator test, and that is even though it has about a 90-minute sort of eco auto shutoff with no load. So that no load is tolerant enough of a very small, very intermittent load that it's not a problem for a typical 12-volt refrigerator. Let's go find out how much of a usable capacity charge you can actually get out of this built-in solar panel all by itself. All right, it is just about 9 o'clock in the morning. Got nice, very clear skies. As you can see, the sun is still pretty low. Got a very long shadow. But I'm going to just see what we can get out of this power station with the built-in solar panel only. I have it fully depleted. Let's see if we can make this out here. But it is just starting to charge. So only 12 watts. This is a 30-watt panel. Now we'll get much better output out of it, but still, this is a very low capacity output panel. And we'll just see what we can get. I'm just kind of curious how far we're able to charge this thing with just this built-in panel. So let's find out. I'm going to reposition this every hour or two just to give it better alignment to maximize the input, and we'll see. Let's check back at the end of the day. All right, just brought this thing in from spending the entire day out in some pretty decent sun, and I think we averaged around 20 watts typically out of this 30-watt integrated panel. And you can see we're at 40%. Now there's no real handy granularity here with this state of charge indicator, so we don't really know if this is 21% or 35% or 40%. We just don't know, but the 40% block is solid. So the only way to really find out how much energy we really got into this thing is to do another DC test, DC output test on this. So with the current charge as it is, it was completely empty, and we filled it up in one day with this integrated panel. Let's find out how much power we can actually get out of it from one full day charging with just the integrated panel. So to do that, let me go ahead and plug that in and turn the DC on. All right, we'll come back and find out how much power we actually did get into this with just that little 30-watt integrated solar panel. All right, finished discharging here. Let's see what we ended up with. Looks like we got 149.28 watt hours. Now that was with one full day just with the integrated solar panel. Okay, so we got 149 watt hours and one full day of good sun with just the built-in solar panel. And that makes sense because the average daily capacity charge for a 100-watt solar panel in my area is somewhere around 485 watts. So if we take 30% of that number, because this is a 30 watt panel after all, not a 100 watt panel, we get something like 145 watt hours, which is pretty much spot on what we got from this built-in 30 watt solar panel. All right, let's go find out how the C600 performs when we add another 100 watt solar panel to it. What happens if I do connect a 100 watt solar panel to this? Can I get 100 watts or whatever I'm going to get from that panel plus this panel, or is it one or the other? So let's find out. So I'm getting 18 watts right now. Yeah, very consistently on this 30 watt panel. So I'm going to go ahead and close this panel here so it doesn't get any power from that. And I'm going to connect up a 100 watt panel. All right, we're getting about 87 watts output from this 100 watt panel, which isn't too bad considering the sun is pretty low in the sky. It's really early. All right, let's see what happens if I open this and see if we suddenly get another 18 watts or so. It is going up. All right, now we're getting about 105 watts. So you can use both panels together to boost your input watts just a little bit. And sometimes every little bit counts. All right, so that's pretty interesting. Obviously, you're not going to want to rely solely on the built-in solar panel for a complete recharge, but it's still handy to know that you've always got that little extra emergency charge input if you ever need it. And when you don't, being able to boost the charge just a little bit by using both the add-on and a built-in solar panel is kind of cool. And by the way, I did also test to confirm that the C600 will actually auto solar charge in the morning when the sun comes up without having to do anything special. Some power stations don't actually do that, and you kind of have to wait till the sun is all the way up before you plug them in, but this one has no problem automatically starting to charge. And you can run an AC load on this while solar charging. And again, that's something that not all power stations will let you do, even though I really do consider that kind of an important must-have capability. All right, so let's summarize my thoughts on the C600 power station from BROWEY. First, a couple things that I kind of wish were different. It'd be nice if you could charge this power station via AC just a little faster than 6 hours at that 108 watts. Being able to fully charge your power station in under 2 hours when you need to is kind of handy. That said, when you do fast charge these battery cells, you are slowly but surely shortening their long-term useful life. And so there's always a cost to that benefit. And so I think the ideal solution is a user-selectable charging speed so that you can decide if it's urgent enough to use the fast charge or not. But that's not available on this particular unit. Next, I'd say that I'm not a huge fan of this little 20% blocked increment state of charge indicator. Maybe it's because I frequently test power stations for performance and I like a little more precise granularity in that state of charge. But it's just something that I prefer personally. May not be a big deal for you. Okay, so what are some of the things I really like about this power station? First of all, the form factor. I find that I really do like this briefcase style, especially when it comes to storing the thing or maybe tucking it away behind or maybe even beneath a car seat. And the fact that it feels like it's rugged enough to handle real-world on-the-road use is definitely a plus as well. Also, knowing that you always have that built-in emergency solar panel, small as it is kind of cool. It's not going to fully make up for forgetting to pack your 100-watt solar panel, but it'll do a good enough job that it might actually get you out of a jam. So finally, I like that it has a 4-year warranty instead of the more typical 2-year warranty. I think that extra couple of years of peace of mind definitely does add value. All right, so hopefully you found at least some of this information helpful. If you did, please consider clicking that like button for me. I'd really appreciate that. And maybe consider subscribing if you're not already a subscriber, if you happen to be into this kind of products, these solar and portable power products, or maybe some related DIY projects, or just outdoor stuff in general. Oh, and if you still have a question about the C600 that I didn't address in the video, go ahead and leave that in the comments below, and I'll do my best to try and answer those. So I do thank you for dropping by the channel and checking out today's review, and I do hope that you'll consider joining me for the next one. And until then, have fun out there.